And today, as I share my heart, I want to start by encouraging you that we all have a story. And sometimes it's our story that informs our mission and even our calling. And so I may have shared a little bit with you last summer, but I grew up in this Latino community in Santa Maria, California, up the coast a few hours. And my family did not know the Lord. There was a lot of pain and brokenness. And there was even some abuse. But hope came to my home when these two wonderful Anglo ladies used to open up their home every Tuesday afternoon for children to come. They had what was called a Good News Club. And in their home, in their living room, they created a space where kids could come to their house after school and get a snack and hear the gospel, hear Bible messages, Bible stories that I never grew up hearing. And wouldn't you know it, that God had a plan that He would draw me into relationship with Himself, draw me into just into that kind of a transforming relationship through the power of the gospel. So wouldn't you know it that those ladies went to a church up the street, and over time they began to invite me to come to Sunday school, to church up the street, and God began to do a work in my life. And not only was I changed by inviting Jesus into my life, but I began to find my calling and my mission. And so shortly after that, I started growing up through, they had what was called an Awana program. It was kind of like a Christian Boy Scout kind of a thing. And I began to grow. My parents wouldn't, my mom couldn't come to church. My dad was very antagonistic, this machismo Latino guy that just had a hard time, was really threatened by us going to church for some reason. But God had a plan to grow me up and send me off into ministry. And years later, I got into leadership in the high school ministry, and then I was exposed to Biola University, and I came down to be the first one in my family to graduate from college. And God had a plan. While I was at Biola University, I worked in South Central Los Angeles, working with Black and Latino kids to be a role model for kids. And here's where I want you to see. Today we're going to be talking about what does it look like to be a more missional person. Well, here's what happened. My story of emergence that I just shared with you, that faith came and engaged the brown kid from the barrio who hadn't been exposed to the gospel. And now, as I had walked on that missional path with Jesus, He was now inviting me as a college student to go back into the barrio and to now engage with young people and share that same message of hope and life that Jesus had given to me. Now He was inviting me to go back and be a voice of hope. And so there I was in South Central each and every Saturday morning. Oh, I'm so sorry. Let me fix this real quick. There I was at South Central every Saturday morning from Biola with other college students, sharing the gospel with these kids on the streets. So I ended up graduating from Biola, and I started serving as a youth pastor. And I was making disciples of young people. But about 10 years into that pastorate, I felt the Lord was saying, Larry, but He kind of said it like this, Mimo, in Spanish, my son, it's time for you to now leave the comforts of the local church, and I want you to go back on mission again. Not that I wasn't on mission while I was in the local church, but I felt like He was calling me to go do something bold and out of the box. And so my wife and I left the comforts of the local church, and we wanted to take the gospel to some of the harder parts of the barrio again to engage young people. So we, at the time, we had been married just a handful of years, and we had two young kids. Brock, he's 16 now, but at that time, he could barely walk. He was just, when kids are just learning to walk, they're kind of wobbly, And our daughter Karis was in a car carrier. And there my wife is out in the courtyard of these apartments in Central Santa Ana, sharing that same gospel message, that same message of hope to children in the neighborhood. And there have been times when there would be gunfire in the alleyway, and my wife and I are out there teaching with kids, with our interns and staff, and I'd say, baby, don't tell your mom that happened, that their grandkids were out here in the courtyards, and as we were doing ministry, it was a little crazy at that time. But wouldn't you know it, that fruit has resulted, and kids have come to Christ, and kids were engaged in education, and your church has been part of investing in Kidworks. From that time, when we would recruit these interns, Stephen Sue Perry would open up their home on the 4th of July so we could get kids out of our staff, our volunteers, out of the neighborhood, because it gets crazy in the neighborhood on 4th of July. It's not just the normal fireworks that you see at the little stand here. It gets like a little bit of a war zone. And so we would take our interns away, and the Perrys would host us for just a day of rest for our interns, our college students that were our summer staff. And years later now, we see some fruit of some amazing young people that have been engaged with the gospel and have been empowered academically to do great things in the kingdom. And so I'm going to invite one of my heroes. This is Pastor Omar. He's one of our staff leaders at Kidworks. And two of his amazing students, coming up, Jocelyn and Jesus. And they're just going to share a little bit of their story. And then we'll jump in and unpack the gospel that we just read. Omar, thank you.
Hello. That's fine. Thank you for having us here. My name is Omar and Copa, and I've been a part of the Kidworks family for 10 years now, serving with my wife. My wife was actually one of the first ones to come out of that Kidworks beginnings when Larry and Jamie were there with all the interns, and so I always get to brag about her with people. But I've been at Kidworks, and Kidworks' mission is to transform at-risk neighborhoods one life at a time. And I want you to focus on the transformation part, because that's what Jesus does when He grabs a hold of our heart. And then that one life at a time, that it's a journey with people, and it always has been and always will be. It will start there, and it will be there for eternity. And so one of those, these two young, awesome people here with me, I have known of them and been with them for several years now, and so they're always my go-to people. They're always willing to engage and share parts of their story. So we're going to begin just briefly with one question. Say your name, and then they're both recent grads too. They just graduated from high school, and then so we're going to talk about where you plans academically, and then so just.
Hi, my name is Jocelyn. I've been with Kidworks for 3 years, and I'm going to attend UC Riverside in the fall, and my plan is to major in sociology.
My name is Jesus Mejia, and I've been a part of Kidworks for about 7 years. I'm gonna start off at a community college, and after that transfer I'm still deciding if it's going to be UCI or Loyola. And my major is going to be in communications and psychology.
So after, throughout this whole thing, what is one thing that you look back now, or you're looking in the present, how has the Kidworks community helped you in your spiritual journey with God?
Last year, we went to Yosemite Camp for a week as part of a program called Zealots at Kidworks. And Larry spoke in one of those nights, and that's when I decided to accept Jesus Christ in my life. And it was really an eye-opening experience to find it to know that I have a group behind me cheering me on, and it's really nice to know I belong somewhere.
For me, I think it was it was 3 years ago when we went to this camp, far, hours long. It was Kidder Creek. I think I went with when I went, I was just I was debating. I was fighting with myself. My mom was not gonna let me go, and I did not really want to go. And then at the end, there was interns there, one of the aunts was like really encouraging. Like he's all like, God wants you there. Like you should go. And he's all like, I'll be praying for you like throughout the night that you will make the correct decision and wake up early in the morning at 5 o'clock. I think we like left and go. So there I was, 5 o'clock in the morning. I went, and my mom, she had like all these concerns, like, it's too far, like hopefully everything's okay. Once we got there, I think it was like more into like the week. Then when we came back, I was completely like different. I think then and there was when I decided like, I'm gonna break down all the barriers that I had set up for myself, like, and start following God. From there, like, it just like was really eye-opening. I went to my school, went back to my school, I joined the Bible club at my school, started going, one of my friends, like, just Jocelyn said, like, it's good to know that there's a group of people that, because your age out there, and like, big mentors like them, to like, be there for you and encourage you, like, not to step down and be like, oh, like, I have no one, like, there's no excuse, really, there's no excuse. So then, I think when I came back, they invited me to go to a church called New Song. I started going to like these first Fridays, like worship nights, and from there just kept on going. And up to now, we still go because it's only like the first Friday of the month, but like it's switched up. So I think that's the way that God has worked in my life.
And that's just a small portion, and I just want to encourage each and every one of us. And really, I really. You don't know how much prayer is a huge part of this. Our time, our life, yes, but your prayers. If you can always, if you wake up, early in the morning, or and you pray, keep our youth, keep our community of Santana in prayer, because God is moving. And also when that happens, the evil one doesn't like that. And so recently, I just got a text right here when we were worshiping that there have been some shootings again, and a young 7-year-old boy got hit, but not dead, but not fatal. But it's still that is the life. That is part of it. That's not normal. But when you grow up and then you think it's just, oh yeah, it happens. But it's not. It's not. Like we just saying, like, God, like we were here to serve and we're to go. But your prayers, go to that place. Please, I just beg you, and I'm going to finish. If you could just pray for us. Pray for the workers there. Pray for the ministry there. Pray for the youth there and the families. Because God sets people free, and it is true, and He does. But when you're in the middle of it, we really would cover your prayers deeply and your service as well. But prayer is essential to this. So, but thank you, Larry, for giving us the opportunity to share.
Thank you guys for sharing. One of the reasons we wanted to have Omar and the team share with you today is because we feel like we're partners with you in the kingdom. We are an extension of your missions giving. Your church invests money so that our team can be on the streets and in the neighborhood to share the gospel with children and families. So you need to know that in God's economy, your church is invested to help, continues to invest to help us at Kidworks reach kids with the gospel and help empower them academically. And so out on the table here, you're going to see more information. We have all the way from preschool all the way to serving young adults in college and families. We have ministries through that breadth of ages. And so if you'd like to volunteer, if you'd like to know how you can partner with us, we would love to have you individually as well as a church engage more. But here's what I want you to know today in the brief moments we have left. I don't want you to see my life and my story as something that is that I'm anybody special. I just did what God told me to do out of the pain and what His work was in my life, in my story. From my story and where I've come from, this is what the Lord encouraged me to go do. But here's the reality. Each and every one of you have a story. Each and every one of you have had pain and challenges at times in your life. And I find that sometimes you'll find your calling and your purpose, it sometimes comes out of your pain. God takes that pain and He motivates you to want to be a voice of hope and an encouragement to other people that have maybe gone in a certain pathway. And so today, as we engage the Gospel of Luke, I'm hopeful that maybe you're going to find a little bit of your calling, and that you'll dare to get out of the norm, and to say, God, with whatever number of years I have left, God, I want to be more intentional about joining you on mission in everyday life. He may not call you to start something in the Bible. You know, that's okay. That's what He called me to do and these guys to do. But He may call you to still come and volunteer, or He may call you to reach that single mom that's 2 doors up from your house that you know she's overwhelmed and is going through a divorce. And maybe that's what He wants you to be more intentional about. And so let's just kind of see it in the Scripture. So if you have your outline, I'm going to ask that you follow along with me. There's an outline in your bulletin, and you can take notes along with me. But here's what I want you to do. Follow along, and let's let God's Word speak to us about what it could look like to be more missional, to be His hands and feet in our everyday life and relationships. So Pastor Leah read in the Gospel, chapter 5 already for us. But I'm going to jump in and just say that living as people on mission. I love the name of your church because it reminds you every time you drive up of who you are to be as God's people. Mission Lutheran Church. Right? And we are people on mission. Translating the gospel to people in everyday life. And that's just a reminder of our purpose, right? And so I'm motivated to share with you today. So if you're taking notes, number 1, living as people on mission means daring to go into deep water and to let down your nets. Daring to go into deep water and to let down your nets. Look at verse 4. When He had finished speaking, He said to Simon, "Go out into deep water and let down your nets for a catch." Verse 5. Simon answered, "Master, we have worked hard all night and haven't caught anything. But because you say so, I will let down the nets." So let me ask you a quick question. If you think about being more missional, can you think of where God might call you to go get out of your comfort zone or take a couple steps beyond your normal routine of your week? Where might He be calling you to go be His hands and feet? To whom might He be calling you to go serve? Like, can you start thinking through some of the people that are already maybe in your web of relationships that you have a burden for, but maybe you just haven't been as intentional as you'd like to be. Your kids may play soccer, and there may be 1 or 2 families that you just have a burden for, that you just care about from that soccer team. Or you may have a grandchild that's maybe a little bit out there, kind of AWOL from Jesus right now. And you just want to spend more time intentionally praying for them and calling them more consistently. I'm not sure what it is for you. I just know that we can all be more missional. Well, God's Word in chapter 5 says to put down your nets into the deeper water. So let's just assume that some of us have been playing in the shallow end of the pool, where it's safe and we can stand, and maybe the water is only right here, right? And we're playing with a beach ball, batting it around. Everything's good, sipping our lemonade, and we are happy. And maybe Jesus is down on the deep end of the pool, and And he's like, psst, psst, hey, come out into the deep water. Oh, but I'm going to have to swim. I mean, I might even get my hair wet. I hate it when that happens, right, ladies? And get your hair messed up, and that's messy, right? Messing with my stuff, right? But sometimes being missional means that it's going to mess up our schedule. It's going to look a lot like an inconvenience. But let me let you in on a secret. That's where life is rich. When you feel like your life is giving back and helping others. As we continue to age, when we look back on the people that God's used us as His hands and feet to empower, to encourage, those are the stories. As God uses us to rewrite their story, those are the stories that give us life and hope and purpose and help us feel fulfilled. As I get older and the aches and pains in the body begin to scream at me sometimes, sometimes I need to know that there's some lives that have been impacted. And then I'm mindful that life still has purpose and life is good. Because there's some people that have been invested in and on that mission of encouragement in the lives of others. And I'm just inviting you to dare to go into the deep water and to let down your nets. And so in your outline, I'm giving you some ideas of what that might look like. So you can fill in the blanks, if you will. It's up on the screen. Deeper in conversations with people. Have you ever spent time with people in your home, you're having a meal together, and they leave, and you go, you know what, that was a really nice evening, we had a great meal, but we just kind of chit-chatted. We didn't stay too much below the surface. Get out into the deep water. Deeper conversations. It was so neat. Yesterday I was spending some time with a former board member. I was updating him on the ministry and catching up with life and family. And here's what he did. Right before it was time to wrap up our conversation, he says, Larry, I want to pray for you. He went into a deeper conversation with God, and he just interceded and prayed for me. See, that's what it could look like to go deeper, to go back up, to go beyond just the chit-chatting. I'm not saying it's not fine at the meal just to have that chit-chat, but at some point, He may be calling you to go deeper. He may be calling you to put your hand on someone's arm and just say, how's your heart doing? How can I be praying for you? Do you see how you can go beyond just assuming people are doing well and go to a place of the heart? That's maybe what it looks like to go deeper. Deeper in conversations, deeper in intentional relationships. Some of us, you have a list of people that are on your heart, but we haven't scheduled the time. We haven't made the phone calls. We haven't sent the emails. However you like to connect with people or invited them over. I will say this. Sometimes the builder generation, I know that classically our kids and grandkids are supposed to show honor to our more senior folks by always being the ones that come to your house. I've seen that in my family system. Can I just say that regardless of what should happen, can I just say sometimes as the more mature person, can you just take the initiative to pick up the phone, call and encourage that one of your sons or daughters, call and encourage that grandchild, call and engage them, invite them over. That's intentional relationship. Whether they have the tools or are doing that, get beyond that and say, I'm going after that kid. I love that kid too much to let them stay the same. You see what I'm saying about being intentional? Make those calls, make those connections, deeper in prayer. Here's a key. Listen to the pain in people's story. Everybody has challenges. When people are sharing and just talking about the challenges they're facing, reach across and just say, can I pray for you? I'm so sorry you're going through that. See, that's going deeper. people will feel so valued and cared for if you take that kind of initiative. Deeper in sharing your faith story, the gospel, and discipleship. I find that all too often, we're just content to have conversations in the shallow end of the pool. Jocelyn shared that at camp, she made the decision to step across that line of faith. But what happened that night at the camp was that instead of just giving an entertaining message to kids, I shared the gospel on what it means to have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. I just threw the net out there into the deeper water and invited those who would respond to step across that line of faith and to say, Jesus, I need you. Forgive me. For some of you, you might be that only messenger with that business partner, with that friend that you have that 20-year relationship, friendship, but maybe you're just hoping they're going to look at your life and figure it out that they need Jesus. You know what I mean? You just hope they get it. And you know what? Sometimes we have to have those deeper conversations. It might be that grandchild where you say, I've been going to church for a long time. And I want you to know it's not just about going to church. It's about following Jesus. And I don't want to leave this earth without making it very clear on my faith journey and your need for Jesus. You see those deeper conversations? Are you seeing what? It's going to take intentionality. And so I'm inviting you to step into the deeper end of the pool. Just before we close it up, I want to share this video with you, a little bit that will help you understand part of what this net could look like as you hear from a key thinker in the kingdom of God. His name's Alan Hirsch. So let's just watch this together, and I'll wrap it up with another point and we'll close it.
We mustn't stop sharing the good news. But here's the deal, and here's the wonderful thing. It gets done along the way as you do discipleship. Great Commission is just about going to disciple the nations, and you know what happens? As you disciple them, evangelism takes place. Because it's done in the context of discipleship. So here's the issue. We have to reframe evangelism within the context of discipleship. You get to do it, but it's done as you disciple the nations. Now again, you're thinking, at this stage, this is kind of like a weird stuff. What's he talking about? I would say, you can look at the life of Jesus and you can see it. But before we get there, we need to get some sort of definition going, don't we? Actually, before we get to that, they were going to have, if anyone knows me, I'm going to have a whiteboard. Now, I want you to try and read with me here, because I know the app didn't work. And they don't have a whiteboard in this place, but be as it may. Try and paint a picture here, right? I'm going to put a line here, right? Now, look at the Church of Jesus. Look how Jesus does this, right? Who here wants to say in this room that the disciples in the Gospels were born again right up front? Anyone? No? Anyone want to say the middle? That they're born again somewhere in the middle of the journey? No, they look pretty dumb to me. I don't think they got it right. Towards the end? More likely there. But I'll tell you what, even when Paul confesses that Jesus is the Christ, the very next thing he says, Jesus says, okay, I'm ready to go to the cross now. He says, dude, you can't go to the cross. No, Jerusalem, no way. He doesn't understand the cross. Now, in evangelical parlance means he's not saved. He doesn't understand the transaction of the cross. No, he's not even there. Now, when is it? I don't know. You don't know either. Probably what they call the John 9 Pentecost, when Jesus breathes on them and it says, receive the Spirit, or Pentecost. I don't know. Honestly. And neither do you. So here's the thing. If you look at what Jesus is doing, he's got a whole lot of pre-conversion disciples. In other words, he's just discipling them. They're not born again. Folks, that's what we should do. That's missional discipleship. That's Great Commission discipleship. Just disciple the nations. And in the way they get to hear the story of God through your life, and they get, of course they are. But don't focus on the evangelism part, focus on discipleship. And that way you can get to play. See, somewhere in the middle of that line is you can say the born again experience. I can't produce that, neither can you. Anyone else can produce a born again experience? This comes from God, right? But we can just begin by discipling people, and Jesus does his magic on them somewhere along the line. That's his business, right? My business is to disciple nations. Just be obedient to the Great Commission. So you've got pre-conversion, post-conversion, discipleship. First of all, in the image of God, drawing out the imago there, and then we're made into the image of Christ, the imago Christi. So once you're converted, and once you're born again, you kind of reformed into the image of Christ Jesus. That's the eternal purposes of God. And that's how it works. Now, I think it's a wonderful way of actually just getting on with what we're meant to get on with, the Great Commission, by the resurrected Lord. Go and make disciples of the nations.
So, here's what I want you to see. I'm inviting you to be more intentional about being on mission. But what I want you to see is there are maybe a handful of people, relationships that you have with people, that in essence, your net, right? They let out their nets into the deep, out into the deep. And I want you to imagine that he's called you on mission as this disciple maker. And that through those relationships, through those conversations, through praying for people, through having people into your home and just embracing them and letting them, through your mentorship, through those great meals around the table and conversations, that you are helping people, just slowly shepherding them and nudging them toward Jesus, that's what it looks like for you to be on a mission. Sometimes he might call you to get in your car and go to another place and serve him on mission. But in everyday life, he's just calling us to be people on mission, to be his hands and feet, and to nurture those people along in relationship with you, whom you already know, some of them. So I want you to, as you go forward, I want you to think about what God could do in and through your one and only life. To be those kind of disciple makers. And sometimes on that journey, in a one-on-one format or in a group format, you share the gospel. You're loving them always and just kind of nurturing them. And you have people at different places on the continuum. But periodically, the Lord impresses upon your heart to share the gospel. Invite them closer to Jesus. Help them understand. And you use that kind of influence and mentorship to help introduce people to Jesus. That's what being on mission in everyday life can look like. But we're going to have to get out into the deep. But what's great in verse 6, when they had done so, they caught such a large number of fish that their nets began to break. So they signaled to their partners in the other boat to come and help them. And they came and filled both boats so full that they began to sink. How powerful is that God might want to give you a harvest just because you're willing to go beyond the shallow end of the pool out into the deep, deeper in relationship. If you're taking notes, the second point, living as people on mission means letting God use you even while you're still in process. Letting God use you even while you're still in process. What that means is we don't all have it together. Jesus used the disciples who still had issues. Peter still had a heart issue and he was still trying to work it out that Jesus was Lord. He even after being with Jesus sometime, he still denied Jesus. Then he got back on track and he kept going. Now here's why I wanted you to see that, is that God wants to use you even though you don't have it all together and I don't either. Verse 8 says that when Simon Peter saw this, great catch, he said, he fell at Jesus' knees and said, "Go away from me, Lord. I am a sinful man." To be honest, I think some of us, the reason we're not a little more intentional by being on mission is that maybe we don't think God would really want to use us. Or we don't have it together enough. Or we don't have that much to offer. And so I like to challenge people by saying, quit saying no for God. Quit saying no for God. He didn't say He couldn't still use you even though you're still in process. So quit saying no for God. But I haven't got over my smoking issue yet. Quit saying no for God. Well, every once in a while I'm still kind of angry. Yeah? Saul was a pretty angry dude before Jesus met him on the road and changed his name to Paul, right? Man, just let God use you. And over time, on that journey, on that continuum, every time He uses you, more of Him pushes out the brokenness and the issues and the stuff. So quit saying no for God. So let God use you even while you're in process. And lastly, number 3, living as people on mission means transitioning from the natural to the spiritual. Transitioning from the natural to the spiritual. And here's what I mean by that. Look at verse 10. Then Jesus said to Simon, "Don't be afraid. From now on, you will catch men." So they pulled their boats up on shore, left everything, and followed Him. Transition from the natural to the spiritual. You have those relationships with people. But what happens is, I think we've lost a little bit of our edge. And we don't transition from those everyday conversations in the shallow end to periodically jumping out into the deep end and going deeper in conversations. People will appreciate it. People will go, "Man, that person cares about me. That person heard the pain in my story and they showed compassion." And that's a real friend. But you gotta be willing to get out there and to transition from the natural conversations to spiritual things. So let me ask you, what's your boat? What's your distraction that's keeping you from being those kind of missional people? And I challenge you to make a list of those who you have relationship with that should be a part of your discipleship net of relationships. When you leave this place or on your outline, can you make a small little list of those people? What if you say, "Hey, I don't have a ton of mobility. What can I do?" Man, you can be calling those people every week and be that mentor, coach, encourager. You can just be that mentor on that phone that encourages in those 5-minute phone calls. And every week you're just that encourager, that Barnabas in someone's life. And everybody needs mentorship and encouragement and prayer and someone to believe in them. So I don't know what it's going to look like for you. I just know there's people like that in your life. And I'm inviting you to step into the deep end and to connect with them. Let me close this out in prayer. I know we're getting to the end of our time. Let's pray. And as we pray, I'm just going to lay hands on Omar and symbolically in terms of the challenges in the neighborhood and what they go back to today. But simultaneously, I want to pray a blessing over you that you'll dare to be people on mission. Let's pray. Lord, we thank you that you give us your gospel to remind us about your heart for the last, the lost, and the least. God, help us to make disciples. God, we confess that if we don't make disciples, we've missed our assignment as Christ followers. So, Lord, open our spiritual eyes to see the people that need to be a part of our discipleship groups, part of our net, so that we can more intentionally love them towards you. Lord, we pause to pray with and for Omar, Jesus, and Jocelyn, and the team at Kidworks who stand in the gap every day for children, youth, and families that live amidst gang influence and drugs and gunfire. Have mercy, God, in our neighborhoods. Have mercy on the lives of the children and families therein. God, rescue children and families from that. Call them to yourself in these last days. Pour out your Spirit, God. We pray that revival would pour out in and through these neighborhoods. That you have mercy, God, on the children and families in these communities. We pray a blessing over Jocelyn and Jesus, who heard their hearts as they dream about the future. God, will you use them powerfully and boldly for your purposes, God. Direct their steps. Give them wisdom beyond their years. And Lord, use them to reach back and mentor and disciple others coming behind them. Thank you for this day. May it be said that we at Mission Lutheran Church are people that are joining you on mission in everyday life. And all God's people said,